Hey, it's Joel from 3D Printing Nerd Studios, of course, proudly powered by PCBWay. I say that all the time because every week we try to bring you something new and exciting and fun and just something inspirational. But thanks to Prusa and Prusa Stories, we're gonna break down that wall, we're gonna go behind the scenes, and I'm gonna show you what else happens here at the studio space. This view I like to call the workshop. It's the background that you see in a lot of the videos that are out on the channel. And it's kind of neat because I've got my rep rack and filaments behind me with a shelf to kind of take care of projects. I've got some storage of machines that I just don't have room to put in other places yet, like my Ultimaker 2 Plus Extended or my 3D Gens 1. And then one of the things that's really cool, I've got my 3D printed hammer. And this is so when I'm testing something and it doesn't go right, I can fix it. That doesn't get old. Jeez. So right here, this is kind of a test bed area for high temp and industrial level machines. This is the 22 IDEX from Vision Miner, and I've been working with Vision Miner to kind of make it the better machine with UX and UI, someone external from the company. It's always a good idea to have someone with a fresh set of eyes take a look at certain things. And I think my feedback has been valuable. And this is a killer machine. And so I'm really excited to tell you more about it in future episodes. And next to that is the Pantheon HS3, which I've also been helping make better, and it's been a fun one to use. This is kind of the cool location within the workshop where I get to spend some quality time with machines, really dive in, kind of nerd out for a bit, and then give quality feedback to the companies. When we're recording this, obviously, it's before anything is out about this. This is the new Mark IV's from Prusa 3D. And I love seeing the advancements on this platform, and really look at how aggressive that looks. I love that. I do happen to get machines before they're announced, and part of the joy in that is being able to test them, use them, and then provide the feedback. I think that feedback is important and it helps make products better, but also it really invigorates my soul because I've been doing this for so long. Getting something new like this out of a box, it just feels great. It's like the old days of 3D printing when I first started and I was just staying up until odd hours of the night 3D printing things. And so I'm really excited about this. Obviously, I'm gonna do more prints and I'm do some overhang tests, but this is really cool and you're probably gonna hear a lot more about this soon. Next up, I get to show you my print farm area, and I've got the door held open just because it makes it easy to get stuff in and out, but I'm really excited because there's been some updates. Come on inside. We're in the 3D Printing Nerd print farm now, and behind me, you can see a mix of Mark III, Mark III 5, Mark IV, and XL 3D printers, all from Prusa. Early on when I started 3D printing, my interest was piqued because I could bring things that weren't real into real life. And that's why I wanted to get started. Plus, I'm a giant nerd and I love this, tech sort of stuff. And one of the reasons that I started the YouTube channel was because I liked making stuff and I wanted to bring people along that journey. And so very early on, I've always been someone who likes to make stuff, whether it was with cardboard and masking tape as a small child, making forts for my G.I. Joes, or using 3D printers to, at first, I made myself a GoPro camera rig, but then, a few years beyond that, then I get to make things for other people. Well, as an example, here are some of the cool things that I've made for others. So I worked with Craft Computing to make the cases for his Axe Effect server temperature and humidity sensors. I did 415 Part A, 415 Part B, all on the Mark IVs behind me. I worked with Daniel Boer. She's got the Steam connection. She put together this thing called Ekgar. Every kid gets a robot. And I was able to give her a fantastic deal on some multicolored Ekgar parts that she then packaged up and brought to schools where she taught kids all about robotics. So back in the day when I was doing 3D printing of cookie cutters and selling them on Etsy, I did allow custom orders to come in, and you get some strange requests from potential customers about the things that they want. One such strange request was someone wanted a cookie cutter to make it look like a medicine pill, and on it was just a bunch of swear words. And I did it. It was cool, but you know, sometimes you get some strange requests in 3D printing, and you don't have to print them all, but I don't know. They gave me a laugh and they were happy with the product. One of the biggest things that I made here on the farm was for Dangling Carrot Creative, and they did a benefit haunted garden that helped the special effects and prop workers that weren't working in Hollywood at the time because of the strikes. And I made a bunch of these little carrots that kids would hang around their necks so the performers wouldn't necessarily scare the kids. That was kind of the signal to not scare. But we wanted to give them something that was really big and really cool. So what I did, using the Prusa XL in 2 parts, I printed this giant angry carrot. It was so cool. And one of the things I remember I talked about this is the layer lines were so smooth. It looked amazing. And even after that, when we sent it down to Dangling Carrot Creative, we got a picture back and they had put it together and then they had painted it professionally and it looked amazing. And that was probably one of the biggest, coolest things that I printed on the farm. One of the key differences in a print farm with multiple machines or a print farm with all the same machines like what I have is that you can set things once in software and then you can replicate it across the machines. I chose Prusa Mark 3S Plus as my platform, and what's great is I can slice one thing in software and I've got one set of G-code and I can utilize that on dozens of different machines. And there's value in that because when we talk about a print farm of considerable size, you have to manage your time, and having everything of the same machine really gives you some time back that you can do in outreach, advertising, or just spending at home with your family. So as far as the number of printers right now that are prototypically assigned to the farm, I've got 18 on this side and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this side. I had to count. I had to count. I chose the Prusa line of 3D printers originally because I'm familiar with the brand because I've had the Mark II, the Mark III, etc. So I went with something that I'm not just familiar with, but had a proven track record for the usability that I put it through. One of the things that I find fascinating about the Prusa platform that I've chosen for the print farm is the ability for it to be upgraded. I do like that the Mark 3S Plus machine, while still a tank and can produce anything that I want, it's still something that is kind of slower compared to modern day 3D printers. And what we can do is now upgrade that using the 3.5 or the 3.9 or the 4 platform to bring it up to date. And you're still utilizing the Mark III base, but you're bringing it up to date and you're making it similar to like a Mark IV, which can print much faster. To manage this farm, it's kind of a multi-step process. So the XLs, the Mark IVs, and the Mark III 5s are all within Prusa Connect. And so on my phone or on a computer, what I'll do is manage the farm within Prusa Connect, and I'll put files that I need to print and send the prints to the machines, and that's that way. With the Mark 3S Plus machines that aren't on Wi-Fi, it's pulling all the SD cards and sitting at a computer for a bit and then copying G-codes over. A lot of people talk about enclosures and 3D printing, and there are the use cases for it. You can see all of these printers in here. They're not enclosed, so this room is cut off from the rest. I have a blanket there, a sound blanket that acts as an insulator, and within my 3D printing nerd studio space, it's not heated. So in the wintertime, it might get to 45 C in here. I know the temperature on these machines when I moved them in, because I moved in wintertime, it was showing 9 C, so it can get kind of cold. And at that point, if I was to keep them in the cold environment, then I would need an enclosure for them. But I don't for these because, again, it's insulated and separated. And so when the printers are running, I will have it up to between 66 and 72 Fahrenheit, which is great. Now out there though, the studio space where I get to talk and show things, it can get kind of cold, and that's where an enclosure for me and my use cases really comes in handy, because it's insulating the printer from the coldness around it and any cold drafts that might come in to crack a layer or separate it from the build plate. That enclosure is going to stop it from that. Now, when we talk about high temp materials, like the 22 IDEX, that build plate goes to 200 degrees. It's rated to 300 degrees Celsius, and the hot end will go to 500 and beyond. And so the enclosure there isn't necessarily to keep it from the elements. It's actually essential for that material in order to print properly. So do you need an enclosure? Well, that's really up to you. Does your garage get cold? If not, you might need it. Are you gonna print a lot of ABS? Well, maybe you'll make your prints better. It's kind of really up to you and your location and your experience and what you're doing with 3D printing. We can't talk about Prusa machines without talking about open source. And this is my opinion on things. You might have a different opinion, but this is how conversations are started. I think Prusa's doing open source right, like 95% right. I know that Prusa and the team set out to make sure things are good, and sometimes the release of models or step files or software trails a bit from the time a machine is released. I've seen that feedback, but generally they make good, and I'm happy about that. One of the interesting things that I get to see is by cross-pollinating with the industrial sector. We go to the MRF, we go to the 3D Printopia, the Smurf, the Remurf, all those consumer shows, and we talk about open source and the free sharing of ideas. And it's wonderful to see, and I think it's exactly what helps the DIY element continue to be as awesome as it is. But when we go to the industrial sector, when we go to Formnext and we go to Rapid, we talk to multi-million-dollar companies with machines that cost 6 or 7 figures. And they talk about the number of patents they have. That's a selling point. And they talk about how their system is closed and you have to use only their stuff. And some people say it's terrible. Like I've heard feedback from people in the DIY space that say, oh, Stratasys should be more open source. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that there is a time and place for things to be open source, and I think the free sharing of ideas is incredibly valuable. But I think at a certain level, companies have IP that has to be protected, and not just for their own financial stability, but because they're dealing with regulations. They're under ITAR, or they're dealing with, here in the US, the Department of Defense. And there are certain things that they can and can't do because of that dealings. And part of it is the sharing, the open sharing of certain stuff. And so I think open source is great in the DIY space. I think it's exactly what we need. It empowers people and it makes ideas go forward, and it really brings us new and cool stuff. And I think that at the industrial side, I think the concepts of open source should be looked at, but there's no way it can be implemented by some of these companies because of what they're doing. And so I think it's cool. I'm glad Prusa is open source. I love his open hardware tattoo, but I don't think that directly translates to the industrial sector. I think there's conversations that can be had, but I don't think it's a direct translation. For the print farm itself, it's 3D printing mostly, but as far as manufacturing here within the studio space, within my workshop, or within the print farm itself, there are other tools that I utilize besides 3D printers. I know it's shocking, right? But I do that. So I use laser cutting at times and laser engraving to be able to customize packaging for things. And I also utilize, I like candy. So it's not necessarily a tool, but when you're working in a print farm area or you're manufacturing something, and just having little nibbles of gummy bears every so often really keeps you going. I know it's not considered a tool, but we're talking about things that you use to make your workflow better. And while a laser cutter allows me to customize some things, the gummy bears are what keep me going. I think right now, more so than ever before, I think some sort of additive manufacturing machine is essential for the creator. I think 3D printing itself has solidified itself as a cornerstone of digital fabrication. I think that a 3D printer, a laser cutter, and a CNC machine, I think these three things make it an essential sort of machine offering for someone who wants to get into just the general digital fabrication area. You know, it's often that I get asked for advice on how to start your own 3D printing service bureau or print farm or YouTube channel. And it's The best advice I can give is just get started. So for a YouTube channel, obviously record with your phone or what you have and just start making content, and you'll find out how to make it better as you go along. The advice is your first 100 videos are gonna be crap anyway, so get those out of the way and just keep going. For print farm and print service bureaus, use what you have. If you have one machine and you do a job for someone, congratulations, you're now a print farm operator. And keep doing that. Do more and more jobs, and then get to the point where the jobs that you do on your single 3D printer are too much, and you need to then supplement it with another 3D printer, and then another and another. And you will eventually get to the point that I'm at or surpass it entirely. I'm always thankful for where I'm at within the 3D printing global community. It's been a joy. It's been an absolute joy doing what I'm able to do and hearing from people who love watching what I'm able to produce. And I'm just thankful I get to keep doing this. And so it's really been a net positive in my life. And that was a behind the scenes look at the Prusa machines within the print farm. And it's really cool that I get to show you that, because not everybody gets to see it. And not everybody knows that 3D Printing Nerd offers print farm services. And so if you're in need of that, obviously, let me know. I'm just really glad I got to show you. This has been a lot of fun. This is gonna be a great Prusa story, no doubt. I really hope you enjoyed it. I do have some things to do though, like test this Mark IV's. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Reach out if you need anything 3D printed, maybe I'll be able to help you. And really, at this point, thanks for making it this far, because if you did, you're awesome. Don't forget to hug each other more, fight for a cause you believe in, and print all the things! And as always, high five.